Out of a group of 20, 18 were Dine and Dashers, folks. Get a load of this. This is the Crazy Cajun restaurant on 290 in Hollister. According to the people I spoke to that sent this video in, the folks here that you guys see were not happy with that gratuity fee.
Every once in a while, I get sent a viral video, a hot tip from somebody out there in the audience, and I click on this video, and then I watch it, and I think to myself, that is not real. People in the United States of America, an allegedly civilized country, do not behave this way, only to find out that, of course, it takes place in Houston, so it's definitely real, definitely an uncivilized part of the country, and of course, each subsequent detail that I discovered throughout my research makes the story significantly worse. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This viral video where 18 out of 20 patrons, that's 90% for those of you who are not good at maths over at home, ditched out on this bill, and the circumstances surrounding this, the cost of the bill, everything related to this just makes the story exponentially worse as we delve into it. So if you're ready to get on board with this trip down to Hell Lane, we're gonna do it. But before we do, I'm gonna toss it to the sponsor of this video. US debt spike could be setting us up for a long-term rally in gold. Since March of 2020, the federal government has added $8 trillion with a T to the national debt, and over that same period of time, gold is up 50%. To make matters worse, BRICS nations and oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have been meeting, possibly to redirect away from the petrodollar to some other form of currency. It appears that Biden's Build Back Better plan of increased spending and increased regulation is never going to end, and that is likely to slow economic growth. But the thing is, you don't have to panic. You don't have to be left holding the bag. You can actually do something to secure your investments and protect yourself against the oncoming disaster. Call America's Precious Metal Company, National Gold Group, at 866-826-2603 and learn how to secure your investments today. Make sure you mention my channel, Actual Justice Warrior, so that they know that I sent you, and get on the path of securing your future. There is always a risk with any investment, and past performance is not a guarantee of future results.
I spoke with management here at the Crazy Cajun off of 290. They tell me that they have had people who've walked out on tabs before, but nothing like this. Take a look at the video. This was all captured on cell phone. Now, management here at Crazy Cajun, they say last Friday, this group of 20 people came to the restaurant. They tell us during that visit, they made several complaints, sending food back to the kitchen, but the manager says no matter what they did to try to ease those complaints, it did not seem like the people who were visiting could be pleased.
All right, so you guys have the groundwork for this. And by the way, we're going to go into that receipt in great detail, but we got to go to this New York Post article so I can read you out some of the amazing facts related to this, so that you can understand how disgusting these people absolutely are. So as I said, it takes place in Houston. It turns out these 20 people were a part of a funeral party, meaning that they were supposed to be grieving somebody that they cared about when they decided to go out to dinner to this particular restaurant, and this is how they acted post, again, a funeral.
Now, for the record, there is a sign posted inside here at Crazy Cajun that groups of 18 or more would have to pay automatic gratuity.
Now, in this particular restaurant, they were informed, and there's actually a sign on the wall that says that there's an automatic 20% gratuity if the table size or the group size is 18 or above. They had 20 people, that's why they were charged the 20% gratuity. And this is my first issue, my first problem with this particular story, because in New York and in most places, I don't know if it's the same in your part of the country, the gratuity automatically being added is something that typically occurs at 5 people or more. So they spotted them, according to my count, an extra 13 people for a 20% gratuity, and for some reason, that being added onto the bill was a bridge too far for these people. But it actually gets much, much worse, because of course it gets much, much worse. That's what I told you in the open of the video.
They did not want to pay that, so what they did was walk out. Only 2 tabs were paid for. This is sad. Wait a minute, did she just say she was gonna pew pew someone? Oh Lord.
So not only does this mob of people who are unfit for civilized society, that's why they live in Houston, but yes, I'm here all day, folks, flee the restaurant, again, from their funeral party, but when confronted by the staff, and by the way, the waitress was actually a single mother in this instance, they actually had people in their party threaten to shoot and kill people on the staff for demanding they pay the bill for the food that they actually received. And by the way, a lot of them requested to-go containers before they decided to take off in this dine and dash.
Several patrons and other visitors and the staff there, they captured the cell phone video of this whole group dining and dashing, even taking to-go containers of the food they complained about. One person could be heard on the video threatening the staff, saying that they would get shot.
So they just came from a funeral. This is entirely a possibility that the person who died in this funeral, because again, we're talking about Houston, was shot to death, and they're threatening to shoot waitstaff to death because they're ditching out because of a 20% gratuity that was only added because they brought more than 18 people to this party. But again, it actually gets significantly worse, and that's something that I definitely want to go over for you guys.
In the end, management comped drinks, kids' meals, some of the food items, but the guests then took issue with having to pay automatic gratuity.
So these people come into this restaurant. Again, they're coming from a funeral or going to a funeral. I don't exactly know. And they complain about every aspect of the service. By the way, the waitress in this instance, as you'll find out throughout the course of this local news segment, should you choose to watch it, is a single mother who's saving up to buy a car. But during the course of them trying to satisfy this party, they started comping drinks for them. They started comping the kids' meals for them, other food items, exchanging items, everything that you could possibly imagine in order to make this party happy. However, nothing brought them any kind of joy when it came to this particular incident. Now, like I said earlier, they didn't leave any food behind, even though they were indignant about not paying for it. They took it with them in to-go containers, even though they complained about it the whole time, which just goes to show you how low class and downright hood this behavior was. But to make matters worse, the bill was only $542.
Folks here that you guys see were not happy with that gratuity fee.
And the gratuity that they were angry about, the portion that made up in the bill, was $84.64. Now, two people in this party did cover their own tab. I don't know if that comes out of the $542 total for everyone else, or if it's just tied to those two individuals, but let's do the math both ways so we could talk about how much this costs per person, again, table of 20, for either scenario. So scenario 1, the bill is split evenly 20 ways amongst the 20 people, and that brings you a grand total of $27.10 per person. Again, not a big deal for when you're going out to eat at a restaurant, especially when you got additional drinks, and especially when you got additional food and the kids' meals comped, and all sorts of other benefits that they received from this restaurant in an attempt to make them happy, despite the fact that they refuse to be satisfied with anything. But let's say that this is the final remaining bill after the two people closed out their own tab, and let's do the math on that, because that will give us a higher number, and maybe that will be a number for you guys out there in the audience that you might want to ditch the table for. So scenario 2 is the $542 is spread out over the remaining 18 people, and that brings you to $30.11 per person. And obviously, when you look at that number, that is just not a lot of money for a restaurant. And considering you should be focusing on your grieving instead of scamming a local restaurant in your area, you would think that these people would be willing to pay it. But again, these people are low-class trash individuals. Now, by the way, one of the things I actually don't like about the state of Florida is that it seems like multiple places, or at least hotels and resorts and certain types of restaurants, add in the gratuity no matter what, even if you're going on a date with a single person. In fact, when I went to Hell's Kitchen in Miami, which by the way, was a great time. I used to love watching the show.
Where's the lamb sauce?
The base price for the appetizer that I had was $33. Now, even without the 20% extra gratuity that they add automatically because I went to the Miami branch of the restaurant, we are already above the per person individual amount for either scenario that I laid out in the open. And again, you can be mad at the 20% tip, but if you eat the food, if you take food home, if you say you don't like something and they bring you something else, you know what? You should pay for the food. Do the honorable thing. But these people are complaining and threatening to murder somebody over maximum on the high end $31 per plate per person at this restaurant, assuming that the $5.42 factors out the two people who did the honorable thing and paid for their own bill. Absolutely absurd in every possible way.
They did not want to pay that, so what they did was walk out. Only 2 tabs were paid for. This is sad.
But it's actually significantly worse than that when you think about it, because according to their objections, what is told to us in the viral video, the thing that really aggravated them was the fact that they added in that 20% automatic gratuity, which totaled up to be $84. But here's the thing. If you disagree with the gratuity charge, first and foremost, you should just pay it. You agreed to pay it. There was a sign in front. You know that this is typically a thing when you go with large parties at restaurants. They calculate it for you so you don't have to worry about it. So you should just cover it. Again, if you split this over 20 people, it's almost no money and it should not be a thing that bothers anybody. It's $4 per person. Calm down, relax. But the thing is, they didn't pay for the food that they received throughout their meal. It's not like they decided that they were going to pay for the bill minus the $84 gratuity that was tacked on. They just refused to pay for anything, and they stormed out, taking everything with them because they felt entitled to do so.
On top of that, you guys threaten the wait staff with a pew-pew experience? Nah, that ain't it. All right, so this is just an idea of the group, how big the group was.
I have to be perfectly honest. This is one of the most hood, trashiest things that you can possibly imagine, because a huge portion of their group, who, by the way, again, according to them, were coming from a funeral or going to a funeral, are children. This is the example that they are setting for the next generation. You treat waitstaff like they're absolute garbage. You send things back to the kitchen because you don't like anything. By the way, I think I've sent 2 items back to the kitchen in my entire life going to restaurants, and one of them was because I ordered a hamburger and I bit into it and the inside was actually cold ground beef. It was still kind of frozen on the inside and it had to get to that level before I actually sent something back. And the other time I was at a restaurant, I think I was in Spain, and by the way, I paid for this entire dish, but the ham that they served me in the dish smelled horrible. It was actually rotten. In fact, I made a point to pay for it so that they would know that I'm not trying to scam them out of any money or anything like that, as long as they promise not to serve that to other people in the restaurant. As long as I saw them throw that away because it smelled that bad, I was good in that scenario. That's how I act in a restaurant. Maybe that's a little too conciliatory to the staff, to the people in the kitchen and all of that, but I understand that you don't want to put all of that on the server because the server is not responsible for the food. They're supposed to be doing the best that they can, and you should show them some appreciation. But never in my entire life would I show this level of horrible behavior, disgusting behavior, hood-like behavior in front of children. Never would I teach them that this is how you treat waitstaff. And by the way, Black people have a reputation, and a lot of servers will tell you this in private, even if they won't admit it online, for being poor tippers, and the fact that they refuse to pay an entire bill over a 20% gratuity, $4 per person out of the 20, really does not do any benefit to that kind of idea or that kind of stereotype, especially when you consider that all of their drinks were comped, especially when you consider that they had multiple food items comped, especially when you consider that 20 people were able to eat at this Cajun seafood type restaurant for about $27 to $31, depending on how you're calculating the final split of the bill.
We're actually going to talk to the manager coming up in the next hour. She did say that they did file a police report, but usually in these cases, nothing gets done. So we're hoping that something happens here, but we're going to talk to her to get more information.
And that's the worst part of the story. This restaurant has had this situation before. The staff at this restaurant has dealt with customers doing this to them. However, what ultimately ends up happening is they file the police report and nothing gets done related to this. But if I were the Houston Police Department and I saw this video, I saw this local news story, I saw it going viral on TikTok, viral on Twitter, viral on Instagram, viral on YouTube, you know what? I would make an example out of these people. And the specific person that I would make an example of is the one who threatened to kill somebody over trying to collect a bill that was legitimate in every possible way. These people need to be named. They need to be shamed. Their mugshots don't only need to be posted online, they need to be put on billboards all across the city of Houston. Any restaurant should know that they have a full right to refuse service to these people because they are the scum of the city of Houston. Now, I know you're going to say, Sean, look, this isn't the most serious crime. There's murderers getting out in Houston. You know, you cover that Breaking Bond series and all that. And true, I understand there are more serious crimes, but these are the people who are raising and teaching these horrible values to the next generation. And what the hell do you think those kids are going to grow up to be with adults like this in their household? This is how they acted post a funeral. When they're supposed to be mourning the dead, they decided that they were going to go out and scam a Cajun restaurant because they felt entitled to do so. You gotta set an example for these people. You have to shame these people. You have to correct this behavior by force, by shaming. That's what you need to do. And yes, they committed a crime, and threatening to murder somebody is definitely a felony crime. So I expect some significant charges. I demand some significant charges. I don't know if I expect it because, of course, we're dealing with the city of Houston. You know what you used to do? At least this used to happen on TV shows when you did a dine and dash. You used to have to be in the kitchen washing the dishes. I sentenced them to wash 10,000 dishes for every dollar in this crime. I want them to take years on this process, send them to jail, don't even lock them up, just put them in the kitchen next to a dishwasher that works perfectly fine, but they're not allowed to use because they need to hand wash the dishes. Give them a toothbrush and make them do that. That's what these people deserve. Absolute scum in every possible way. Again, this was post a funeral, and they taught this to their damn children. Good on those two people who ended up paying for their own portion of the bill. But by the way, if I were in this situation, if I were in a group of 20 people, I would have just covered the whole bill because it's insane that this would be a thing that actually happens in a group that I was a part of. It's absolutely disgusting. And if you can't tell, I'm extraordinarily pissed about this. Even if you think it's out of proportion, trust me, I'm 100% right, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this insanity out of the city of Houston. Till next time.